Drinks Coach, coming to you, sponsored by Reverend Hubert Winter Gin Liqueur. Yeah, I'm not going to stop until Christmas. We need to sell quite a lot of stock in order to make this business work. Everyone's in the same boat, but please, if you're a friend of mine, you want to try something delicious and very, very Christmassy, then do buy a bottle of Reverend Hubert Winter Gin Liqueur. The website, reverendhubert.com. So this is a hastily put together Drinks Coach, all lowercase, Vinesack or Drinks Coach UK. If you want to talk to me about future episodes, or if you want to give me feedback on the ones I've been doing, you're watching YouTube, and do hit the subscribe button if you want to see future shows. Well, as I mentioned in a couple of shows ago, this time of year we get quite a lot of virtual tastings. I think things have evolved through COVID, so we're now being sent wine, and the winemakers are sitting there in front of their computer, in this case in South Africa, in Paarl or Stellenbosch or wherever they may be sitting, and I'm supplied with the wine. And my wife and I were sent these 6 fantastic wines most recently, along with a Paxton and Whitfield box of cheeses to go with each wine. Wow. Not only the cheese is spectacular, they were absolutely fantastic condition, but we put them all on a scale and we weighed them, and not only did we get sent these 6 bottles of wine, so I didn't pay for these wines, but we didn't pay for the cheese either. There was 1.6 kilograms of cheese, so we're sorted almost up till Christmas for cheddar and Comte and Brie, etc. They must know I love a bit of cheese. But they had me at KWV Mentors, which I'll come on to in a minute. If they didn't, they would have had me at Paxton and Whitfield. So, here we've got 6 wines made by the fine winemaker at KWV in Paarl. Now, you may have come across KWV before. KWV. By all intents and purposes, they're the oldest wine company, brand company in South Africa, and during apartheid, and just after, one of the few wines you could actually get in this country was KWV Rudeberg, which means Red Mountain, and or Road to the Mountain, Rudeberg. I think it's Red Rudeberg. Anyway, something like that. And it was a wine that was £4 or £5, and really incredibly good value for money. It was what they call a Cape blend. It was blended with the South African variety, which most people were out of love with at the time, which is Pinotage, blended in with everything else. And to this day, what doesn't go into the fine wines at KWV gets blended into the Rudeberg blend. The 2007 Rudeberg, I've yet to try the 08 Izele, but if the 07 was anything to go by, it was an absolutely fantastic wine. When I was in South Africa last time, this wine that I personally sold in Waitrose for $4.49, they made me taste one of the bottles of Rudeberg blind. It turned out it was from the 2000 vintage. 2000 wasn't even a good vintage, and this wine was knocking on the door of 20 years old and was quite delicious. So it just shows you what South African wines can do. They have an amazing propensity to age. So even if you're buying value for money, the balance and the tannins and so forth really give you a lot more for your buck, literally, than almost any other country I can name right now. So, Izele van Blerk, shout out to you, babe. I count her as a good friend. She's coming over in June 2021 with the upper echelons of the Veritas Wine Awards, which is the oldest wine competition in South Africa, for reasons that will become clear. But I have promised her a good night out. So you better get your tequila hat on, Izele. We're going to the Pink Chihuahua. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, this is the premium range of KWV. KWV is a very large producer of wine. They produce millions of bottles of wine a year. And they have this incredible project. I don't know how long they've been making Mentors wines, but if I think in my head, I don't remember the labels being much older than, I think, 2011, 2012. But knocking on for 10 years now. And the best they produce, the best of the best, goes into these bottles. Now, when you think that this is a large company with very mature vineyards in one of the finest wine-growing valleys on earth, you'd think that the top wines they produce, I mean, they have 1 or 2 super icon wines, which I shall also mention, but the top wines in each particular variety are £16 retail in this country. So you can imagine how cheap they are in South Africa. But if you buy bog standard KWV wine, go into any off-licence, any supermarket, I think any Londis sells KWV right now. You can buy a bottle of KWV Chenin Blanc or Sauvignon Blanc or Chardonnay or Pinotage for like $7.99, $8.99. And I will defy you to find a better branded wine, if not wine at all, that tastes much better for that price. They are, with the advantage of the fact that they have a weak currency, even against ours, extortionately, the opposite of extortionate, exceptionally great value for money. So let's talk through these wines quickly. I seem to have caught a bit of a sniffle. Anyway, so this is the Mentors Coastal Region Chenin Blanc 2019. This is a wine I have already shown on this show. If you go back to Chenin Blanc Day or World Chenin Blanc Day and you look at the series of shows I did to try and support the South African wine industry, because they were in free fall, they weren't allowed to sell on the domestic market. The only way they could make money was to export more wine. This is one of the Chenin Blancs that I featured, and it's magical stuff. It's quite pale in colour. Chenin Blanc, great variety from the Loire. Unbelievably, it's not as well known as it should be. Wines from the Loire and from South Africa, very different in style, but both capable of a great deal of aging, and they're very complex and very exciting when they're young. In of the same style, they're the only great variety, noble variety, that can really compete with Chardonnay. I think Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc are both of an equivalent quality at the top end. When the very, very best Chenin is made and the very, very best Chardonnay is made, there's very little to separate them. And I think because Chenin has so many different facets, it's just more exciting right now. I'm having a bit of a honeymoon period with it. I've been drinking Chardonnay all my life, but Chenin's still a relatively new pleasure for me. So, smells of quinces, apricots. Great density. It's got really kind of richness to it. Rich in a way that will help it age, but also it's a wine that you can have with shellfish, or you can have with roast pork. I think you could even, if you're pushing a boat out, drink this with red meat. That's how flavourful Chenin Blanc is. A really great all-rounder for a barbecue, for instance. Okay, wine one down. Okay, now I'm not entirely sure I've got these in the right order, but I'll go through these wines. These are the wines that Izele wanted to show me. These wines are all award-winning quality wines. I can promise you these wines are all deserving of a gold medal or two. I just don't know of a more consistent, inexpensive range of premium wine in the world today. Certainly not in the new world. So where are we going next? We're going to try this. This is Petit Verdot. Petit Verdot 2018. Now 2018 was a very, very, very warm year in South Africa. Very warm. People have heralded the 2015 vintage. I've raved about it on this channel for red wines particularly. 2017 I thought had better, more refreshing acidity, was a better red and white wine vintage, and one that I feel very strongly will be an exceptional vintage going forward. Now Izele surprised me by saying, looking at the statistics, looking at the stats of the wines, the technical information that came in, and the way that the wines are tasting from 2018, despite a desert-like drought that year, she thinks these wines are even better. And I think, well, how can that be? I mean, we're always taught that if you have a long, cool, sunny growing season, you get more complexity, more balance, and that's where really great wines are made. If you have a really, really hot year, then not so much. Now, a lot of these wines are blended, of course, they're blended from different vineyards, if not between different grape varieties. But the thing here is that it was so hot that they were picking earlier. And because they're picking earlier, the pH levels were lower. That is to say that the acidity levels were higher. The wines were more balanced. The colours were better fixed. Their sense of youth was retained in a better way. So kind of almost for all of the opposite reasons, 2018 may well turn out to be a far, far, far greater vintage than people were initially saying. I know Tim Atkin, who writes a review on the South African wines, peerless review, no stone unturned. He was quite specific that he thought 18 was a very good vintage for specific grape varieties. And I'm inclined to agree with him. Now read his stuff and spoken to Izele van Blerk at KWV. Look out for 2018s. And 2019s was another brilliant vintage. So really what I'm saying is if you're going to buy South African wine, you don't need to look at the vintage on the shelf. Recent vintages have all been pretty good. They all might taste slightly different. They're all different faces of the same coin, if you like. But lots of lovely South African wine to be had out there. Going back to Petit Verdot. Petit Verdot is a great variety, which means in French, little green one. Why? Well, it was put into, and continues to be put into, Bordeaux wines. Particularly those in the Medoc, in the thin tall bit, where Cabernet Sauvignon is king. Because it used to add a lovely deep colour to the wine. It was added just 1 or 2% for the robe, as they call it in France, la robe, which is the colour, the glow of the wine in the glass, to make it look more serious. And it had a beautiful deep blue colour, which tended to fix and make the Cabernet look more serious. But up until recently, it was very rare in Bordeaux that you could actually ripen the grape fully. So they didn't put too much in because it tended to have some green tannin behind it. Now, as the greenhouse gases increase, we are finding ourselves planting much more Petit Verdot in Bordeaux because it works better. But Petit Verdot can take a proper hammering. Petit Verdot is planted in large quantities in the Murray River Delta down the southeast of Australia, on cordons, on very simple trellising, to make lots of fairly plonky wine back in the day. But these vines now are 30 years old and making really supreme Petit Verdot. And South Africa, and particularly Paarl, is a place where it's very, very warm by any standards of winemaking around the world, and it makes astonishingly good Petit Verdot. What do you get from ripe Petit Verdot? Well, you get blueberries and huckleberries and plums. You get loads and loads and loads of fruit at the front, and then real genuine structure behind. It can add structure to things like Merlot, to Bordeaux blends in general. It's an extremely useful wine to blend, but also has the capacity, when it's fully ripe, to be a great variety bottled on its own. Here we go, let's try this. Oh my God, it's blue-black. I've been using this glass to taste all day. Sorry, it looks a bit manky, but there we go. Wow. Tastes like blueberry cheesecake. It's creamy and fruity at the same time. And then you've got the biscuity dryness of a structure behind it. Cheers. I'm not driving anywhere today. Okay, so, moving on. This is a wine called Canvas, 2018. My wife, very astutely, while listening to Izele's chat when we were having our Zoom chat the other day, said, is it called canvas because it's a blank canvas? And Izele went, yes, high five, that's exactly what it means. I never even questioned it, which is the reason my wife has got a first in history of art from the Courtauld, and I don't. Canvas in this case means a Bordeaux blend. This is an elegant Bordeaux blend. Izele was trying to pick the grapes at a level of ripeness where the Grenache and Syrah, in the blend of lots of different grape varieties in this case, produce something a little bit more European in style. The following one, she tells me, is going to be a straight Syrah or Shiraz and Petit Sirah blend, which is quite exciting. I look forward to that. But really, this is an opportunity for her to sort of to flex her creative muscle. And I don't remember a canvas which was more satisfying than this. Let me just try and explain it to you. A lot of wines in South Africa either tend to be quite dry and tannic and needs a bit of time, or tend to be a bit lush and juicy and a bit kind of, well, you know, kind of Australian in style, and for me maybe a little bit too obvious and a bit jammy. This wine manages to straddle that best of both worlds thing perfectly, right? It's got a lovely deep colour, which is not something you expect from a Grenache-based blend, but there's a lot of Syrah in here as well. It's got a deep, deep, deep plum fruit, plum and mulberry fruit. When you taste it, you've got that mid-palate sweetness, a softness in the middle that Shiraz often has from the New World. And then really dry, what we call pumice tannin. And this is where Izele has totally succeeded in this wine. Because pumice stones, those things you used to wash your hands with and kind of get rid of little marks on your hands with a bit of swarfiga after a session in the lathe lab at school or whatever, when you got muck all over your hands, it doesn't come off readily. That pumice tannins are tannins that kind of absorb and suck in moisture. They're quite dry. They leave your palate sort of wanting more. They make your tongue water, give you a real mouth-watering sensation in the mouth, which I think is what sets Southern Rhone wines apart from the rest of the world. If you drink Gigondas, or if you drink Vaqueiras, or Côte du Rhône Village, and of course Châteauneuf de Pape, these wines have that texture of grandeur, of richness and perfume. You put the wine in your mouth, and they're abrasively dry, but in their dryness, they're succulent as well. They're kind of, it's a bit of an oxymoron, but it's true. And very rare to find that in the New World. And she's succeeded with this. Another £16 blinder. Perfect Christmas Day red, I would have thought. Selector. Okay. Moving on to a great variety, which has people in 6s and 7s, really. I was front of the queue of the Pinotage haters. My wife claims she's always liked it, but it has definitely improved. So it's not just me, it's the wine too. And the Mentors Pinotage, the Pinotage that Izele decided to make, is one of elegance. There's a bit of, I think, sandwich ferment, a bit of whole bunch in here. Oh dear, I'm not going to be able to open this now. I don't have a corkscrew. Do I have a corkscrew? Oh look, there we go. Pinotage tends to be quite dry, arid. In the back of the day, it used to be a bit earthy, almost rubber tirey. Used to suffer from some bacterial spoilage and used to smell almost off, almost sort of like bacterially spoiled. This wine is all fresh cherries, bright fruit, and something that I never thought I'd say about Pinotage until 2 or 3 years ago when I judged the Veritas. Porcelain tannin. The tannins are very, very fine. And the shape of the dryness in the mouth, that the way it manifests itself, rather it's like a mouthful of gravel or like a mouthful of fineness, porcelain, almost like a little paste in the mouth. That sensation you get when you've got smooth peanut butter in your mouth. That's something that separates really fine Cabernet Sauvignon from rustic, flavourful Cabernet Sauvignon. And you get both of those in South Africa or in any other country indeed. But you're looking for soils to provide finesse in all aspects. Pure fruit, silkiness in the palate, but also these tannins that are almost like talc. Well, don't know how she's done it, but the Pinotage has that texture. The great Pinotages of South Africa, Bayers Kloof, Konon Kop, Simonsig, they all have this in common, and they've really reached a level of evolution. They've evolved up like Pokemon from basic to something quite brilliant now. Again, £16 for a wine like that. Beautiful with your Christmas ham, your Tom and Jerry ham. You know, the one they used to run around in Tom and Jerry. Yeah, big ham goes very well with that. Now, coming on to this beautiful wine, and I have kept my Zalto glass ready for this. There we go. This is a Bordeaux Blend. It's 2018, and it's a wine that has been consistently delicious, and it's called Orchestra. Now, I think that Izele took over winemaking at Mentors in 2014 vintage or 2015 vintage, somewhere between the two. And the wines are consistently getting better and better. But if you ever get a chance to try Orchestra 2012, wowee. It just tastes like a second or third growth claret. End of story. And can you imagine how much it cost then? It was like a tenner. Crazy, crazy value for money. This wine is made from all of the Bordeaux varieties: Cabernet Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, and Carmenère, the full wax basically. At the Veritas Wine Awards every year, all of the senior judges, so the judges that head each panel, so that's one judge per panel, and then the 3 or 4 international senior judges that come in, like myself, to give the South African judging panel an international perspective and say, you know what, that wine's nice, but that would be seen outside in the modern world or in the European world as something a little bit old-fashioned. That's what the Australians were doing in the 80s and 90s. This is much more what people are aiming for, to give people a steer so the competition stays current without people having to travel around the world. It's a very important part of the judging process. Everyone on the last day tastes all the double golds, all the wines that got over 95 points, the finest wines that South Africa and by rote the world can produce are put out in front of us. Whites, reds, fortifieds, even brandies and sparklings. and we pick the one that we like the best. One vote, one judge. And that award gets given to the Vertex Wine of Show. Izele van Blerk won Wine of Show at the Veritas Wine Awards with this wine. Tim Atkin wasn't wrong either. 94 points there. I think I'd probably give it 96. Splitting hairs. This wine, at £16, was voted the best wine in the entire competition out of 1,800 wines tasted. That's pretty spectacular. Well done, Izele. Rockstar, baby. So what's so special about it? Well, I talked about hot years producing wines, grapes that ripen early, which means they have more acidity. Then you blend them all together and you're also laying in complexity too. So this wine has freshness, has ripeness, it has structure, and it has complexity. It has all the things that you need. But beyond that, Izele and the team and Wim Trutter and all the other people at KWV, I'm sure, have their little part to play. Have produced a wine that's truly lyrical, truly fluid, fluent, very unblocky and contrived. It's a wine that really tastes like it came from the soil rather than was made in a winery. And I don't know, it's certainly a wine that I'd expect to pay £45 plus for in Bordeaux, put it that way, or in Australia for that matter. Australian wines aren't cheap anymore. With China, Japan, America, everyone trying to buy the little amount of really old vine, rare wines that are in Australia, the price is going through the roof. South Africa, they haven't quite discovered that yet, so I'd get your boots on. And finally, this is a special range that comes out each year. Last year, it was Carmenere, unbelievable Carmenere, the best Carmenere I've ever tasted. And if you think about Carmenere being grown in Chile for the last 140 years, and Izele makes her Carmenere out of a vineyard where the vines are between 4 and 6 years old and manages to make literally the best Carmenere I've ever tasted. I think Tim Atkin said the same thing. Just shows the mettle of the woman, how good she is at making wine. But this year's special, they only make 1,000 bottles each special. This is bottle 814 of 1,000. Is made from a great variety called Petit Sirah. Right, better explain what Petit Sirah is. Petit Sirah in the Rhone can actually be a clone of Syrah or Shiraz, where the grapes are slightly smaller. Petit Sirah, not spelled C-Y-R-A-H, but C-I-R-A-H, is in fact a Portuguese variety called Durif, D-U-R-I-F. It was found in California, and it's also found where a very popular grape variety, Zinfandel, is grown. Zinfandel, a lot of people might think is just a pale, sweet rosé. No, because Zinfandel is a dark, rich, powerful red. But it always tastes better with Petit Sirah in it. It's like it's like the bar back in the best bar in the world. It's the guy that did all the work but didn't get all the credit. They've planted Petit Sirah and to see what it would do, and have made a tiny amount of quite exquisite Petit Sirah. Now, this is made really in the big, bold Australian style. And when I smelt and tasted this, it just reminded me of buying something from Penfolds. Now, there's no finer compliment than that. Penfolds is the best, most traditional, most famous producer in the whole of Australia, nay, the whole southern hemisphere. And this wine has big ball, big cherry fruit. It's like sour cherries, red currants, strawberries, to red fruits. It's mouth-filling with lovely, tingling, sour acidity, almost like you've added a bit of cranberry juice to the whole thing. I don't know how alcoholic this is, but it's a beast. 14.5. Quite stunning. From a grape variety which is not considered in any shape or form a noble variety. It's a wine that I would happily pay a considerable amount of money for, which is good, because this one, ladies and gentlemen, is £39.99. You can buy these wines all over the place. There's a company online called Perold Cellars. Gerhard Perold is in fact the great-grandson or grandson of the guy that invented Pinotage, no less. And Perold Cellars sell all of the KWV wines. We've got Slurp, one of the best, certainly best value offerings on the entire sort of Webosphere. If you're going to buy really, really good quality, well chosen, amazing value South African wine. Slurp is very much a place to go. Also sold, where are we? Having a look at here. We're looking at Cellar Door Wines has been highlighted to me as well. So there's lots of places where you can buy these wines. Just go online and see where you can find them. But here we go. Chenin Blanc, Petit Verdot, Bordeaux, it's a Rhone blend, Pinotage, Bordeaux Blend, Petit Sirah. What a lineup. I'm going off to get some more cheese. See you next time.